Mr. John Barasa.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, Ms. Jensen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Well, here we go. There is no question that what happened to Taylor Wright is a tragedy. No one in this courtroom is going to dispute that. On October 19, 2017, Taylor Wright's body was found in a shallow grave off a fence line on the Britt family farm with a gunshot wound to the back of her head. Now, during this trial, there will be no evidence introduced showing you exactly when and where Taylor Wright was killed. What the evidence is going to show you is that sometime around September 8th, 2017, that was a Friday, into September 9th, 2017, that Taylor Wright stopped communicating with people she knew. But you're going to learn from the evidence that that was not exactly surprising for Taylor Wright, given everything that she had going on in her life at that time. You see, recently, Taylor Wright had gone through a contentious divorce with her ex-husband, Jeff Wright. And in the summer of 2017, things were amped up between Jeff Wright and Taylor Wright. Mr. Wright was alleging that Taylor Wright had recently taken somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 from a joint account. And Mr. Wright was fighting to try to get this money back from Taylor Wright. According to Mr. Wright, he's going to tell you that Taylor Wright is making this extremely difficult to deal with this money. Mr. Wright is having to resort to taking Taylor Wright back to court to deal with this money. In fact, you will see that on September 7th, 2017, a Thursday, there was a hearing scheduled in Okaloosa County to deal with this money issue between Jeff Wright and Taylor Wright. And this is just a day or two before Taylor Wright stops communicating with people. Now, the evidence is going to show you that Ms. Wright did not appear for this hearing in Okaloosa County to deal with this money. Mr. Wright, the evidence will show you that he's clearly frustrated with Taylor Wright, and he's not surprised at all when she doesn't show up to court on September 7th, 2017. You're going to hear from witnesses that know Taylor Wright that would tell you that she was consumed in this battle with her ex-husband and had a win-at-all-cost attitude against Jeff Wright. Now, as those issues with Taylor Wright and Jeff Wright are going on, at the same time, spring 2017, Taylor Wright meets a woman named Cassandra Waller. Most people that know Cassandra Waller refer to her as Cass. You may hear some witnesses talk about Cass. Soon after Taylor Wright met Miss Waller, they became involved in a romantic relationship. The evidence is going to show you that this was described as a volatile relationship. You see, just weeks before Taylor Wright stops communicating while in this relationship with Miss Waller, the relationship hits several snags. First, Cassandra Waller learns that Taylor Wright is continuing some sort of relationship with another woman over in Biloxi, Mississippi area. Additionally, it comes to Miss Waller's attention that Taylor Wright is also possibly using illegal drugs. Now, as you can imagine, none of this sits well with Cassandra Waller. Doesn't make her happy at all, and she wants to end the relationship at that time. She's clearly frustrated with Taylor Wright. Now, they do attempt to move past these incidents in late July, early August of 2017. What they do is they suggest that Taylor Wright move in with Cassandra Waller into Cassandra Waller's house. This happens end of August of 2017, beginning of September of 2017, so about a week or two before Taylor Wright stops communicating with people she knows. Now, the evidence is going to show you this is how Taylor Wright moves into Cassandra Waller's house. She doesn't really move in. She has a moving truck or a box truck that's loaded with all her belongings that sits at Cassandra Waller's driveway. For weeks, it sits in that driveway. You're going to see from the evidence that when Miss Waller couldn't get in touch with Taylor Wright on September 8, 2017, her first emotion was not really concern, but frustration and anger with Taylor Wright. Here we go again, Taylor Wright, doing the same things you always do. September 8th, September 9th, 2017, Taylor Wright had a lot of things going on. Now, at some point, after no one heard from Taylor Wright for an extended period of time, somewhere around September 14th, an investigation was officially started into Taylor Wright's disappearance. As this investigation was ongoing, you will learn that our client, Mrs. McArthur, spoke with law enforcement on several occasions, as the state laid out in their opening statement. Some of these conversations that our client had with law enforcement were face-to-face conversations, some were over the phone, some took place down at the Pensacola Police Department. The evidence will show you that Mrs. McArthur, while being questioned about Taylor Wright and what she knew, was not always forthcoming with all the information she had, that she did not provide complete information on everything she knew about Taylor Wright. For example, you will hear about an interview between Ashley McArthur and law enforcement that took place on October 19, 2017. During that time, she was talking to law enforcement, and they were asking about her whereabouts with Taylor Wright on September 8, 2017. And the evidence will show you that Ashley McArthur lied. She did not tell law enforcement about her and Taylor Wright going out to the Britt family farm on 9/8. She did not provide complete information to them. But you're also going to hear that during the same interview on October 19, 2017, that law enforcement officers, in their attempts to get Ashley McArthur to come down and talk to them that day, they were not straightforward and honest with Ashley McArthur at the beginning of that meeting. As the state informed you in their opening, when Taylor Wright was found along the fence line at the Britt family farm, there did appear to be a cement-type substance on top of her body, as well as some dark-looking potting soil on top of it. The evidence is going to show you that Ashley McArthur, on September 9, 2017, it was a Saturday, went to a local Home Depot and purchased some cement, potting soil, and lawn soil. And there's a video of that. I'm sure you're going to see that video at some point during this trial. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier in my opening, there won't be any evidence of exactly when Taylor Wright was killed or where she was killed, because you're going to hear from several witnesses who spent substantial time out at the Britt family farm after September 9, 2017, after Ashley McArthur was at that Home Depot. For example, you're going to hear from witnesses such as Kyle Britt. Kyle Britt actually lives at that time at the Britt family farm. You're going to hear from him. You're also going to hear from Kara Britt. Kara Britt is Kyle Britt's mother. She lives over, I think, in the Jacksonville area, but she frequently comes over to check on her son and work on their farm, that property. You're also going to hear from Patrick Smith. These witnesses did an array of work on this farm. The work ranged from weed eating around posts to actually clearing tree limbs on the fence line where Taylor Wright's body was found on October 19, 2017. This work by these witnesses was done throughout September and throughout up to mid-October. These witnesses will tell you that while they were working on the farm, they didn't notice or see anything like cement had been mixed up somewhere, potting soil anywhere on this fence line. They did not notice anything unusual at all on this farm while they were doing that work out there. Now, to fully understand this case, you're going to have to learn a little bit something about the relationship that Taylor Wright had with Ashley McArthur. Ashley McArthur knew Taylor Wright for over a year before Taylor Wright went missing. The evidence is going to show you they were friends, They hung out. They did brunch together, and I think in August they even took a trip to New Orleans together. Mrs. McArthur would on occasions even watch Taylor Wright's son when Taylor Wright needed to work and had no one to watch her son. Mrs. McArthur gave Taylor Wright a key to her house. We believe the evidence is going to show you that the relationship between the two of them was very good. The evidence will show you, as the state mentioned in their opening, that they did some financial transactions together. I believe there will be evidence that they had conversations about starting a business together. What you'll hear is that sometime around August of 2017, Taylor Wright and Ashley McArthur together put some money in a checking account. Now, the check that went in this checking account, yes, was originally, it was in the name of Taylor Wright, and it was for $34,000, $35,000, $36,000. You're going to see that the account that it originally went into was in the name of only Ashley McArthur. But the evidence will show you that when the money went into this checking account in August of 2017, that Taylor Wright was added to this account. The evidence will show you that Taylor Wright had complete access to this account, meaning anything inside the account. The longer that Taylor Wright was missing and people couldn't locate her, things in this case began to really heat up. Multiple law enforcement agencies became involved. You had PPD, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Fish and Wildlife. Media attention also grew on this case. You're going to hear from some witnesses that would socialize with Ashley McArthur on occasions up at a place called Sticks Billiards. These witnesses, we believe, will come in and tell you that they heard Ashley McArthur make some statements that she wanted harm done to Taylor Wright. We believe the evidence will show you, with regard to these witnesses, when you hear from them, that there were going to be inconsistencies in what they say Ashley McArthur allegedly said and what allegedly occurred. Also, you're going to have to, when witnesses come forward, you're going to have to look at their motive and possible interests in saying what they say. You will see that these witnesses who are going to come in and claim that they heard Ashley McArthur make these statements, that none of them, the evidence will show you that none of them came forward until Ashley was arrested, until after all of them had gotten together, talked about this case, and watched extensive media coverage on this case. As you can imagine, based on the nature of this charge, there's going to be evidence and testimony about guns. And you're also going to learn that Ashley McArthur, yes, while married to Zach McArthur, had a relationship with another man named Brandon Beatty. He was the owner of the Sticks Billiards. There will be evidence that after Taylor Wright stopped communicating, that Ashley McArthur gave some guns to Brandon Beatty. I think the state's going to put forth evidence that some of these guns may have been originally purchased by Taylor Wright at some point. It's be important for you to understand that you're going to learn that Brandon Beatty is a gun collector. He calls himself, at least back then, he called himself a gun collector. Mr. Beatty's going to testify, and he's going to tell you that pretty much the entire time he knew Ashley McArthur, which was starting back in the summer of 2016, that Ashley McArthur, on pretty much a monthly basis, would purchase or give him guns as a gift. That was the normal course of the relationship because he absolutely loved guns. Mr. Beatty will testify at no time did anyone ever ask him or tell him to dispose of, get rid of, or hide any type of firearm whatsoever. As the investigation continues, more and more focus is put on Ashley McArthur. At the time of this investigation, she lived over on Raintree Drive, which is over in the East Hill area. She lived there with her husband, Zach McArthur. She lived there with her daughter, Savannah. You're going to learn that law enforcement searched her residence 3 times. First time law enforcement came over, they asked for consent. Can we look in your house? And you're going to hear that Ashley McArthur said, sure. And law enforcement searched the house. You're going to learn that the house on Raintree Drive was searched 2 more times pursuant to a search warrant. The McArthurs at the time of this investigation used 3 vehicles. There's a Ford F-250 pickup truck, there's a white Jeep Wrangler, and there's a black Jeep Wrangler. Those vehicles were used by the McArthurs back in 2017. You're going to learn that all 3 of those vehicles were seized by law enforcement, processed by crime scene, searched. Also, you're going to learn that Ashley McArthur's family owns some property over on Pace Boulevard. It's a business called Pensacola Automatic Amusement. In the back, there's looks like a warehouse. You're going to learn that law enforcement went to that warehouse, searched and processed that warehouse. As I've told you and the state told you that Taylor Wright's body was found in a shallow grave near the property line of the Britt family farm out in Cantonment. As you can imagine, that site where Taylor Wright's body was located was searched and processed by law enforcement. On that property out there is a barn, pretty good sized barn. You're going to learn that that barn was searched and processed by law enforcement. There's also a residence out on the Britt family farm, appears to be maybe a trailer type residence. You're going to learn that law enforcement searched, processed that residence. Of course, the entire Britt farm, the evidence will show you, was searched. The evidence is going to show you hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of pieces of items of evidence were collected in all of these searches. As you sit through this trial, you're going to learn that evidence can come to you in many different forms. There can be physical evidence that comes to you, such as DNA, fingerprints, maybe a firearm. There can be evidence that comes to you from a witness that is qualified as an expert in a certain area, maybe a doctor, a medical examiner, a chemist, a biologist. There's evidence that also comes to you from what we just call lay witnesses. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you sit through this case, you will see there will be no physical evidence introduced in this trial showing you that Ashley McArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright. There will be no scientific or expert testimony introduced in this trial showing you that Ashley McArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright. There will be no eyewitness testimony introduced into evidence showing you that Ashley McArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright. There will be no murder weapon introduced into evidence that has any connection to Ashley McArthur. As the evidence portion of this trial is about to begin in just a few minutes, I ask you to remember a couple of things. Remember, this is not a trial about whether you believe Ashley McArthur is a good person or not, or if you like her or not. That's not what this case is about. Remember that your job as a jury is to determine if the state, the ones with the burden, have proven beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt that Ashley McArthur committed the crime of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm. Remember Mrs. McArthur's presumption of innocence that we start this trial with. In the end, we believe the evidence will show you that the state's case is built on, yes, lies told by Ashley McArthur, a motive she may have had, things that she did, ways that she lived her life that you may not like. But their case will not be built on eyewitness testimony. It will not be built on physical evidence or scientific evidence. In the end, after you've had an opportunity to get all the evidence and hear the law from Her Honor, we believe that you will have reasonable doubt in this case. And with that, we're going to ask you to turn a verdict of not guilty in this matter.
Thank you.